You are listening to the Starter Girls podcast with Jennifer Loading. Whether you are starting a project, starting a business, starting a brand, or starting a movement, we are here to talk about it. And the Starter Girls show is brought to you by Walt Mills Photographer of Glad Models Agency. If you are in the Dallas or surrounding area and looking for some photography work, check out Walt Mills. You can learn more about him and his work at photosbywalt.com. And with that, we're going to get things started. Today is a great day to be brave. You might as well start now. You have the power to change your circumstances any day you decide. Let today be that day. Rise up, be amazing, be you, do you. All right, my friends, I am super excited to welcome my guest onto the show today, Jenny Paul. But before we do that, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about her. So Jenny is the CEO of Intent Entertainment and executive producer, creator, actor Jane of Adulting with Jane. She's an award-winning actress, producer, content creator, and teacher. Based in New York City, she holds a magna cum laude degree in theater arts from Brandeis University and a business certification from Harvard Business School. Jenny's best-known credits include Hulu's The Looming Tower, starring Jeff Daniels, Netflix Marvel's Jessica Jones internationally acclaimed series That Reminds Me, and Adulting with Jane. Adulting with Jane is a new short DIY comedy series. Think sitcom meets how-to video with a different expert influencer appearing to teach Jane how to adult. In addition to being a palatable way to learn new skills, the show is one of the first narrative series ever to feature shoppable video technology. When viewers see and like a featured product in the show, it can be clicked on and purchased before easily returning to the episode. Intent Entertainment's mission is to partner with brands, people, and products that share an aim to serve the personal development and quality of life improvement goals of millennials and Gen Zers. So welcome to the show, Jenny. I'm so excited to have you on here.
Hi, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, this is so awesome. So I read part of your bio earlier, so this is the first time I saw the rest of it, and I'm like, wow, you've just done some really kind of cool things. I'm loving it.
I think when you, and maybe this is not everybody's experience, but I think if you move to New York to do art, you find yourself with hands in everything.
Yeah.
So producing and art and, the local community and everything under the sun, you end up finding, things to do everywhere.
Yeah. Well, and you're in that creative space. And so, when I'm looking at all of this, because I think about even what I do with the podcast, and it's so interesting how when you're in that creative space, you start off doing, one little thing and it sort of kind of morphs and evolves into other things. And so you find that, yeah, you are kind of dabbling in different areas, but they all really overlap. They all kind of come together, even though they're different. They all have that common, as my guest that was on here, it's like the bones, they're in the middle, and then the outside stuff is all the flesh. So I think that it's really cool what you're doing. So what I want to do, I kind of want to start off because you are from the Dallas area, which is where we air this podcast. And we kind of found out that, I know where you went to high school. We know where you were at, all that great stuff. Walk us back a little bit about how this kind of came about for you, how you ended up where you are and what kind of led you to that.
I grew up in, like you said, in North Dallas and Richardson. I went to Richardson schools, and I think we had a lot of really good arts programs growing up. And I know that my parents were huge fans of the arts. We used to go to the Dallas Summer Musicals every summer. We'd see every show, and it was something that I got to do with my mom and dad and my siblings that was special for us. And also the Dallas Pops and all of those things. So I think I kind of grew up in and around thinking that art was pretty cool. And that goes across. I did choirs from, elementary school all the way up through high school, and really got interested in theater probably around middle school, but they didn't have that. They didn't offer that at my school. So I took it in after school class. And then by the time I got to high school, the theater program at the high school I went to was really popular. So it was hard kind of to crack that nut and to get into theater and do all of the shows in high school and really, kind of thrive there. And so I spent a lot of time trying to do that because I really enjoyed it. I never really thought that I would be an artist as a choice. Just it was never in the path for me as far as I knew. But I definitely spent most of my time in school pursuing whatever art club or theater, show there was to pursue, for sure.
I love that. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So then I ended up in Boston for college, and I was actually going for pre-med. And my second year, I called my dad, who was also a doctor, and I said, how'd you get through 12 years of this? And he said, well, I liked it. And I went,
Yeah.
oh, okay, so we're gonna be looking for something else now, because I really did not like it, even though I was pretty good at it. Hereditary, I guess.
Sure.
No, couldn't. No, that wasn't my path. So I spent the next few years trying to figure out what that might be, and kind of discovered through classes and taking classes at my school that at theater and performing specifically, but just theater in general, and that sort of empathetic storytelling was sort of going to be more of my path. And then I moved to New York straight from school, and literally never moved back home to Dallas, not for lack of love, just because that was the thing to do. And I've been here ever since.
That's so awesome. I love it. I love it. No, and it's so interesting because I feel like I've had these conversations so many times where, like we go to school to do what we think we should be doing, even though we really don't love that. I mean, I've said this over and over. I studied accounting in college, and not that I wasn't good at it. My mom was an accountant, and I thought, I'm going to be a CPA when I grow up. I thought that's going to be good. I'm going to make great money. And then I got into tax law, and I was like, this just sucks. I'm sorry. I'm not going to lie. There's no way to put this when you're sitting in a class and we're having to memorize tax law. And I'm like, I don't even care about taxes. Why do I want to know this? We have to know this, right? So I knew immediately in there that just wasn't going to be my path. But I think it's so interesting that, we don't really see the things, the things that we know that are our passion and that we're good at. We seldom go after those first. Like we seldom pursue that because we don't think there's anything in that. But really, if you know anything about that kind of stuff, it's wherever I always talk about this, like where your talent and your passion collide, that's where you're the most successful because you're working with your gifts instead of trying to force something that isn't happening. You know what I mean? So
I think that's a perfect way of stating it. And I think we're just very caught up in this idea, and this is for everybody, of what should be. And I think, I knew for me, I knew I loved the arts. I just figured everybody else loved them as much as I did. And it was just the thing that people did for fun. And I didn't realize that not only was that probably not true, that I was a little bit extra in that regard, but also that it was, an option and a viable one at that.
Yeah. I love the term extra. I love, it's so funny because I'm sitting here thinking about this right now, and this has no relation to you, but like we have this cat that could, if it was a human, I think it could be an actor. Like it could be, something like that, because we always say he's like a lot of cat. He's extra. He's just always like that there in our face, just kind of, so I love the extra. I think that is so great because it makes you who you are, and definitely I think you're doing great things, and it sometimes it takes that courage to follow that passion that is not something that we're, necessarily seeing for ourselves, but it is definitely something that you love. And I think anytime you get to be creative and you love that, it's such a great thing. It's just such a great thing. You can't go wrong. You can't go wrong, even if it's a side hustle.
Yeah, I even think that in more mainstream jobs, I think when people get to be creative, especially people that are more inclined to be creative, they thrive more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you on that. And it's funny because, two of my three, actually all three of them are artistically creative in different ways. Like my oldest is gifted in music and she can hear music and play it. Like she actually does better hearing and transposing than actually reading music. And I know because I put her in piano lessons. And my middle one is a great artist. And then my little one has always been just very industrious creative, like can just take resources and create things. And so interestingly enough, I've always thought for years that I myself was never creative. And it wasn't until I kind of moved into doing the podcast and really kind of navigating that and creating, even like stupid little things like creating thumbnails, for the YouTube page. I realized that that's what I really enjoy doing is the creative side of those things because it allows me to express who I am as an individual. I couldn't, not that I'm against accounting. We need accountants. Like I said, my mom was, but I don't know that I would have ever been able to express any creativity in those numbers. I don't know how that would have happened. Like we would have had to make up a song or something to go with the numbers.
Well, I do have a lot of accountants in my family, and
Yeah.
they thrive in a different area. They thrive
Yes.
when the numbers work. They feel so good, and that's more power to you for that, because
Right.
that math clicks, and it's just the best thing that they've experienced all week.
100%. Yes. I agree with you. I agree 100%. And it is. That's what I said. I just think if you're creative, you've got to find that outlet, that space that you can navigate that. And sometimes you don't know. It takes a lot of journey. And for me, it did. It took a long time of soul searching. But one of the things I was talking about this to somebody today, I've said it several times on my show. I always feel like if you go back and you look at when you were a child, and you think about those things that you really enjoyed doing, like where did you thrive? Like you're talking about like the arts and stuff. When you think about where you thrive, even if you navigate away from that, I feel like those things sort of kind of find you. They sort of come back around and they pick up, because if they were there, and it's almost like we have to be sort of childlike and like, go back to like, what was I doing when I was little that I really loved doing? Like I always talk about, like I didn't like playing Barbies when I was a kid. I was not a Barbie girl. I liked creating businesses. I liked creating things that, how are we going to make money and like ideas generate, and like take things and like mastermind this, So I was not Barbie girl. I had Barbies. I didn't like playing with them. So I love what you're doing. I think it's awesome. So I want to talk a little bit about your Adulting with Jane. Tell us a little bit about the show, because I viewed a little bit of it. It's very unique. I love it. And I didn't even know about this shopping thing. So you got to talk about this. Tell us a little bit about it.
So basically the show is some combination of a web series, as kind of the traditional web series go, although I don't know if there's such a thing as a traditional web series, but it's like a little short nugget of a comedy, and it sort of lives in the space between a web series and a how-to video. So the idea is it's fiction, and Jane is going through her life as an adult, as a reasonably young adult that maybe doesn't know how to do certain things like change tires and sew buttons and whatever host of other things us millennials have missed for some weird reason. But she goes through her life as an adult, and what happens is, something happens. And for Jane specifically, instead of her going to Google to figure out what to do, or let's say she pops a button off her shirt, and instead of going to H&M, or she says, oh, I need to go replace the shirt, and she starts to go do that. And then somebody pops into the scene, somebody like a Tim Gunn, and says, whoa, hey, let me teach you how to sew the button back on. You don't need a new shirt. And she goes, oh, thank you, Tim Gunn, and then she learns how to sew a button in a few easy steps. And then she's done, thanks, and then she goes back and does her day. So this sort of, basically Jane is sort of the passenger of her she's a little bit in the passenger seat. Things are just kind of happening to her. And these magical, quote unquote, influencers are magically, which is, a construct for the show, popping in to help her solve her random adulting problems. So this is a show that's been in the works for quite a while with my company. And we actually decided to run the show because of the shoppable factor. So in the last few years, video and video tech has gotten to the point where everything is kind of fair game, where if you're, looking at something on Instagram and you want to buy it, you can literally, click the screen and buy the thing, and you get a sweater in the mail in 3 days. That has made its way into video as well. We are the first to do any kind of narrative thing with shoppable video, but the idea being is that you can actually click things within the video if you want to shop them. So if you really like my earrings, you can click and, look at them and shop them. If you really like Jane's sweater, if you really like if you see a book on the table, if the sewing kit that Tim Gunn teaches Jane how, no, Tim Gunn's not on our show. If you know him, please let me know. We'd love to have him. Please, Tim Gunn, come to our sewing episode. Thank you. So, the sewing kit that he uses to teach Jane how to do the thing is the focus of the shoppability, where somebody could click through and actually buy the equipment they need to solve the problem. But the idea being is that it's interactive and it's shoppable, and you can learn how to fix the problem and then purchase if you need to, or download, or whatever the tool is, access the information to actually have the tool that you might need to finish solving the problem when you learn. You learned it with the show, and then you can finish it by buying a little bitty sewing kit and, stick in your closet for the next time you pop the button.
Oh my gosh.
So that is Adulting with Jane in all of its glory. It's very short. It's very fun. It's very Sesame Street for adults. It's, you know, and it's, the idea is for us to be able to help most, you know, people that have similar things that they want to learn how to do them and be confident in doing them. And then the end, let's learn the next thing.
I love this on so many levels. And Chris, my camera guy back here, is laughing because you said that, you know, Sesame Street for adults, because I joke, my kids make fun of me because I just am not a technology person. You know, like we grew up, we're Generation Xers, so we got computers kind of late in the game. You know, like I joke about this because I went to college and typed on a memory typewriter. I mean, that's how I did papers for college. You know, we didn't have all that. So my kids have all these, and Chris is back there doing this too, same thing. My kids have all this technology. So when I listen to this, I'm like, wow, like this is where we are. This is just so cool because you are right. I mean, how many times you go into Instagram and you can push the button right there and get the item that you want. But I like that it's interactive. I'm sitting here thinking right now, my kids are going to love this because I've looked at your show. I didn't know that you could do that. Like, I didn't even know that part was there. Yeah, I didn't even know. So now I'm looking at it completely with a whole new light. I'm like, I've got to go home and show my kids this video because these shows.
It's about where you watch it because we have it on Amazon Prime so that it gets the cloud of being on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
But the Prime version does not do this.
Doesn't do that.
In order to be able to click around, you have to do the adultingwithjane.com version. So you
Gotcha.
might not have actually missed anything.
Okay. Well, I am still looking at this completely different because I didn't know that was available. So I'm like, you know, when I get out of here today, I'm going to have to text my kids and be like, hey, you guys need to check this out, especially my oldest daughter. You're going to have to check this out because you're going to totally love this concept. So I think that's so awesome. And I love what you're doing with that. I want to ask you kind of some questions a little bit about you as an individual. Who would you say, because obviously, you know, this is all a journey that you're going through and it's going to continue. I think everything we do is this process and you know, we're growing all the time. And in order to have success, you've got to continually keep morphing and evolving. So, but I also believe that, you know, we have influencers in our life that kind of help us and mentor us and shape us. And so is there anybody, and it can be more than one, that you would say has been instrumental or just really influenced you over the years and kind of helped, I guess, maybe pave the way for you?
I think the two that come to mind immediately are my dad. My dad is the one in my family that's the most arts forward. Also, I think the reason that I wanted to be a doctor, back to you know, a few minutes ago, was because he was so good at it. Yeah. And I think I really looked up to him and how he treated the people in the neighborhood in Richardson and North Dallas, and how everybody loved my dad. And he was able to take care of everybody, make everybody feel not only healthy, obviously, because he's a doctor, but feel good about their experience with him as their doctor. So I think I really look to him as a similarly social and extroverted person to find ways to help people and make people feel good about things. So I think that fundamentally my sort of voice as an artist comes from, you know, me, but also my relationship with my dad and how he's sort of imbued in me this idea that it's really important to take care of the people around you in any way that you can. And so that's, you know, 101 for all of the things that I do as an artist. And then later on, I actually had a mentor in college that was on the show Knots Landing.
I remember Knots Landing.
Yes. And I of course did not know what it was in college, but I got very excited once I learned how much of a big deal
it was. Thursday nights I used to watch it.
So I did have a mentor. I did not know how big of a deal it was, or the person that was my mentor in college was. And she basically spent my senior year of college coming to see my shows and all of my different things and convincing me that it wasn't a stupid idea to move to New York to try this. And I think I had it in my head even as late as my senior year of college that this was not the smartest move I could make, that I could go do anything. I could, you know, I could suffer through it and be the doctor, or, you know, teach, which I still do anyway, but, you know, I can teach, you know, school, and I would have loved it. I would have had a great life doing that. And the idea that I was going to switch gears and do something like this was just very overwhelming to me. And so I did have a mentor that basically kind of kicked my butt out the door and said, like, go to New York and start auditioning. Like, if you do that and you get a job, then you have an excuse to move there, and then you'll know it's not, everything's going to be okay. And so I really appreciated that she was there for me, and she doesn't like me to say her name in various things, so I don't, but she was a very major part of my journey,
Oh my goodness,
getting
that's so
here.
awesome.
And then,
yeah.
And then I have, many others as I've moved to New York. I have a good relationship with an actress who's quite famous and quite a bit further along than me. And anytime I need something, she's there, so I think I've been very fortunate to have people that have kind of looked out for me in all of this.
That's wonderful. No, and I agree. I think that, mentors are incredible. And if you can have the luxury of, of finding those, and I think we all can, we just have to find the right people that are going to encourage us to move. And so thank goodness that somebody did stand there and say, hey, you should do this, or you may not have, pursued that. So I think that's great. So this is, my podcast is all, there's so many parts to this, but one of the things that I'm all about is mindset, because I think no matter what it is, if you're in the arts, if you're in a doctor, whatever it is, an athlete, it all requires mindset, because you can't really do anything without being strong up here. So I want to ask you, when you're going after something, whatever this is, creating Adulting Jane, whatever this was, auditioning for a part, making that move to New York, what does that mindset look like for you?
So if you can imagine, we do a lot of work in acting with the body and how the body functions, and what somebody's mannerisms would be, or what that character might walk like, things of that nature in the training and in the education. If you can imagine a person that's walking and their feet are going before the rest of them, if you can kind of imagine what that might look like and what that might be in terms of more of an intellectual concept, that is me. The feet come before the head, and I trust that the head will catch up. Definitely, because it always has, and it's never really steered me wrong in that way. But I tend to find myself walking and moving forward, literally and figuratively, before I even try to catch up with the existential thoughts about what could go wrong, and is this a stupid idea? And certainly they've caught up with me in the past. I had a very big existential crisis in college about choosing this as a career. The same point, 9 times out of 10, my feet are about half a mile in front of me, and I am struggling to catch up. So I think that's the biggest thing for me, is that's both, in some ways a curse, but mostly an asset, that by the time I'm there, it's already done.
Yeah.
So I've already left the audition. I've already, said hello to all the casting directors. I've already thanked my agent. By the time it even occurs to me that I may or may not have gotten a role, I'm not even in the same space. And again, sometimes it's one of those things where it's a little bit like, what's happening here? But most of the time it's just, I'm trying to be physically present with whatever the thing is, and mentally present in the moment. And then I can kind of do the anxiety thing later. And it does come. It's not as often as it used to come, or as often enough for me to really stress about it. But it does come. It does catch up with me. But for the most part, I'm trying to operate sort of in the present with whatever's happening. And then, I may have a moment later when I go, oh, I didn't get that one. Oh,
yeah.
All right, next.
Right.
High feet. Let's go.
Go. No, I love this. And interestingly enough, as you were saying that, I was getting chills, because I can in some ways resonate with that, because I feel like you're going with gut intuition. I feel like you're kind of going with what you're feeling is right to do, and you're not because here's the thing, and I can absolutely resonate with this, because this is the way I operate. If I think too much, and this gets back to, if I start thinking about everything, you overanalyze and you will not move. You will stop in your tracks and you will not move. And so as you were saying all of that, I can visualize this totally because I always feel like my feet are running, and I do think things through, but I feel like when you operate from that gut standpoint, it doesn't always work 100%, but most of the time it's going to get you further than you were the day before, because you're moving on an intuition that says, I need to do this. There's something telling me I need to go that direction. And the thing is, when you were talking about you've already met all the people before you've even had time, I can totally get that, because I don't need to know half the hows on anything. In fact, we were just talking about this before we did this show. I don't want to know the hows. I just need to go from point A to point B. I'm not going to figure out that middle stuff, because if I spend all my energy figuring out that middle, I'm never going to get started. Like, I'm just going to stop. I'm just going to go and we're going to roll with it. We're going to roll with the punches. So
exactly.
I love what you said. I can absolutely get that. And I think you're in that space. That's why you're navigating. You're just going and you're like, okay, what's the next thing I need to do? What's the next thing I need to do to further where I need to be that's going to put me in that space? And so I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with that at all. I think it's gotten you where you are, and it allows you to get out of your way, get out of your own way and be successful. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think what you said about intuition is a major part of it, because in order for the feet to go, I have to feel safe in the beginning.
Right.
So I'll never start doing something metaphorically, literally, or otherwise that isn't actually safe for me, psychologically, emotionally, physically, whatever. But if I know it's safe and I know that the path that I'm jogging on, maybe a little extra, but I'm going to be okay, then we're going, you know? So that's sort of where I see it from. And, occasionally I run into something I don't expect, because I'm not that meticulous a planner. I have a lot of people in my life that are, and I have huge amounts of respect for them. But that being said, a lot more gets done in a day because I'm not super worried about, like you said, the how.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. You're a navigator. That's what I would say. You're just a doer. I think, there's nothing wrong with being a planner. I can be a planner. I just don't have energy for it. Like, if I'm planning, nothing's getting done. Like, nothing's happening if I'm planning. Like, we're stuck. I mean, I get up in the morning, I create a to-do list, I get on my task zone, I got all these things to do. If it starts getting complicated, I'm delegating. I'm like out. I got too many things, too much magic to make happen. So I love what you're saying. I think it's so awesome. It resonates so well. So I want to switch gears a little bit. This is my favorite part of the show, where I get to ask my rapid fire questions. And this is, I think I think you're amazing. I love what you're doing. I love your energy. And I think this is why you're able to do what you do, because you have that passion and that energy, and you're in your space. You're in your lane. You're where you need to be. But this is also my favorite part, because I get to kind of find out some fun stuff about you. So are you a morning or night person?
Night. I'm not terribly, but I tend to fall into Netflix, around 11 after my husband goes to bed. So then inherently it sort of like pushes the whole next day forward.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
So in truth, if you want, the general gist of it, night, although I can very easily shift that for a period of time, but then I kind of start to slide back into it.
You get back in. I'm a morning person. And like, my son just got a job. My youngest just got this job at one of these like bubble tea places here in the area. So he's been working. Yeah. I love bubble tea. Don't get me wrong. I don't like that he's working. Yeah, I don't like that he's working till 11 o'clock at night, because I have to stay up and wait for him to come home. And I'm up at 5 every day. So I have to take, no kidding, this is no joke. I have to, tonight's his last night he's working late. I have to take like a little mini nap during the day so that I can wait up, because I'm not going to go to bed till he gets in the house. I'm like, this is not working. I'm a morning person. This is not working. I told my son, I said, you got to figure something out with that job, because that's just not working. Or figure out how to get your dad to wait up. I don't know. Something. So I wish I used to be a night person. I wish I could shift back and forth, but I'm up early. So, all right. Are you a cat or dog person?
Dog.
Do you have a dog?
We do not. We're not allowed one, which I think is actually a good thing, because I feel like we would have one if we were allowed one, and I just don't know that I have time for a dog.
Right. But, because they're like having a child.
Yeah, kind of.
They're
we'll
like,
get there, but we got time.
You got time. No, you know how they always joke about that. They always say if you don't know if you want to have kids, like you get a dog, they joke about it. I'm like, listen,
everybody that does that thinks that's crazy. Like, everybody that I've done it, like the dog is like doesn't get along with the 2-year-old, or like you have to crate the dog because the dog is wonderful. They're just very jealous of the baby.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
So, get a dog. I mean, dogs are amazing, but don't do it to like test the waters for
right.
Baby.
And they do that. Yeah, because then you're going to have the baby. I agree. And you know what? And dogs are like having kids. I got 2 of them. I know. They drive me nuts. They're always like roughhousing in my house, jumping on the couch. I'm like, you know how many times I have to say, do I need to get my water? I have a squirt bottle. I have this little brindle pit bull that does not like water. Now, the other one's a Catahoula. He thinks he's a duck. But the brindle does not like water. So you don't know how many times I run around going, do I need to get my water? Because they're like always like antagonizing each other. So, yes.
Do they understand water? They know it's coming, or is it just a surprise every time?
No, they know.
Oh,
That's why I threaten. I'm like, do I need to get my water? I'm like, how many times a day can I say that? It's kind of like telling your kids, stop hitting your brother. The other day I was like, can you guys get your mouth or your heads out of each other's mouths, please? I'm like tired of having dogs with wet heads. It's like having children, see? For real.
Yep,
all right.
absolutely.
So so Jenny, what would you say is your favorite food?
Ooh, I really like breads and cakes and things. Unfortunately for me, I am very gluten intolerant.
Uh-oh,
So so I don't actually have them all that often, but when I find a good gluten-free thing, it's like big problem. Large problem.
Yeah. I like
a bottomless pit problem.
Yeah, I can understand that because I do low carb, so I don't eat a lot of gluten either. But I'm like you, so I don't eat a lot of junk. But then there's that, like, I'll say I love sweets. So if I find, like, I don't know when you've been back here, but they have Andy's here, the custard place. And like I could eat ice cream every day, but that is custard. Like I could eat that every single day. Like I'd be sick, but I could eat it every single day. So I have to I have to negotiate because I'm like, okay, so do I want to be sick tomorrow or do I want that Andy's because I really like Andy's and I could actually pick that over like regular dinner. Like I could be like, let's eat Andy's instead of steak tonight.
Oh yeah.
So
I mean, a bread basket could be dinner.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
not because of my intolerance, but it could be.
It could be. See, yeah, it's one of those things where you have to really like negotiate. Do I want to be sick? How bad do I really want this today? Right? I get it. I get it. All right. And I have to ask this question just because I think you're going to answer this funny. So I want to ask you this. So if you were stuck on a deserted island, you have your basic stuff you could eat and all of that kind of stuff, what would be the one thing that you would have to have?
Ooh.
I just want to know. I have to ask you this one. It's a hard question, but
I'm gonna go with something like less funny and more like me oriented. Maybe I need another person, other person for any reason. I need somebody to talk to. I'm gonna die without somebody to talk to, and I'm not even that much of a talker when it comes right down to it. But I think that if I didn't have at least one other person to like say hello to, like my husband, who's super introverted, hey, Jeremy, we talk like 20 minutes a day tops because but we like wander in and out of rooms and, I would be in trouble if it was just me very much.
You are cracking me up. You know what? Okay. So I have to tell you this really fast. So I'm married to a chemical engineer. Introvert. Ooh. So you get this, okay? So I don't know when this happened. It was a while back, but yesterday we were going through all these color things and he told me that he thinks I'm a yellow because I talk all the time and don't listen. I'm like, dude, I listen to everything you say. You just don't say a lot. And then when you do, you get on this thing. So years ago, he was in the bathroom and he was like shaving and I'm like talking all the time. And I don't know if he's listening or not listening. I just talk. And he told me one day, he said, I would like to think we've reached a point in our relationship where we can have a comfortable silence.
Uh-oh.
I'm like, never forgot. Yeah, I've never. So you know what? Like, he doesn't ever get a comfortable silence after that because I'm just, the only time there's a comfortable silence is if I'm just mad. Then there's comfortable silence. And then it ain't even comfortable.
Okay. So I grew up in a house with mostly introverts and then there was me and my dad. So we totally do comfortable silence, where my husband, who actually is quieter than me, grew up with a mom who does not do comfortable silence. It's not a thing. She's from New Jersey. She runs 1,000 miles an hour. Not a thing. So what was very strange is that I'm the one that understands the comfortable silence, where Jeremy is the one that really wants the comfortable silence. So he said many of things like this to his mom at points, and his mom's like, what?
Yeah.
No, we don't do that. We don't do that. So I totally get it.
Right.
Although I don't mostly need it. I think that's hilarious that he does, yet somehow he's much more acquainted with this concept. But I do think that it is it is of value to those of us who are introverted, which is not me or you, clearly.
Right. Yeah. I have it sometimes. I can turn it off. But no, I think it's so funny. That's why I had to share that with you, because I thought you'd get a chuckle out of that, because I get told I'm talking all the time. Like, I can talk to the wall. I talk to the dogs. I have songs for all my dogs. I'm like, humans ain't going to talk. We'll talk to the dogs. So I have to say your answer was really good, because I get that when I ask that question, I get so many random things. I haven't had anybody say another person. So that's good. I like it. Unique. It was good. It was good.
Well, like you said, I'm, like with all of that, I can, I can turn it off too. I just can turn it right back on anytime.
There you go. Reason. That's why you do what you do. I love it. So Jenny, if our listeners want to learn a little bit more about you, find your show, where do we send them?
Adultingwithjane.com is the show. Okay. And I'm jennypaul.info, but that's just my actor page. So if you want to find the show, adultingwithjane.com, it has all the interactive stuff and all of the, find us on these different socials. We have a ton of social platforms that are just jokes and memes and adulty stuff and learning a little bit, but more just jokes, more just funny stuff. So that is the hub of everything. And then Amazon Prime, we're there too, if you like to watch things on TV instead of
perfect. So when we get all this pulled together, I'll make sure that we get everything in there so that it'll come back to you and they'll be able to find everything. And I'm definitely going to check out, I clicked on the link today for the adultingwithjane.com, but I'm going to go back in there because I want to check out the click thing. That part I hadn't seen, so I definitely want to check that out. So I do want to tell you, thank you for being on here and for sharing with us and all your greatness that you're doing. I wish you continued success. I'm excited to follow you and kind of see what you got going, continuing to do. I think it's amazing. And I do want to say to our listeners, of course, if you enjoy our podcast, please be sure you give us a rating both on iTunes and Facebook, because we can't do this without you. Click the subscribe button on the YouTube. And as I've said in all of our last 3 shows, we're on iHeart now, on Amazon. Super excited about that. We're getting everywhere. And so with that, I want to leave you guys with a final thought. Give yourself permission to live a big life. Step into who you are meant to be. Stop playing small. You're meant for greater things. All right, you guys take care, be safe, and be kind to one another. We'll see you next time.